Okay, so let's talk about using retro synth a little bit here. I'm in the table tab of the retro synth, and this is one of my favorite synthesizers, but it's really kind of limited in terms of the modulation you can do with it. So what I'm doing here is using the modulator MIDI effects quite a bit with it. And I'm going to be just doing a quick demonstration on how to assign the modulator to it. Right now, you can see the shape is being controlled with the LFO, and the LFO is doing a randomization, so it's kind of like, it's a little bit like a sample and hold function. So I set this up with the sample and hold, set the rate to 16th notes, and I went to learn MIDI parameter, and then I just clicked on that parameter right there. Okay, I think we're frozen a little bit here. Let me know in the comments if you're actually seeing a live feed or not. Is anyone down there able to actually see what I'm doing? Okay, it says we're streaming. Okay. Okay, I can't see. Hopefully you're all seeing stuff. We'll have to edit this one before we upload the video later. Okay, cool. I can see some comments. Frame rate seems low. That might just be an issue with internet today. As you know, lots of people are working from home and remotely, so we'll just deal with kind of a low frame rate right now. Sorry about that. Yes. So the shape knob is being modulated. Okay, cool. So I don't know how long of a delay is. You can see I just read some of the comments as they were coming in, so that's about how long the delay is. Let me play this, what this sounds like with the shape being modulated. So the shape itself is a file that has a bunch of individual little waveforms in it, and you can load a bunch of different ones from the library here. So there's two things that are happening with this. First of all, it's the LFO is randomly changing the shape, but I also have the filter slowly building over time. So over 10 seconds, it's actually building. But this synth is actually pretty smart in the sense that it's not. So when one note builds with the filter, say we let it go the full 10 seconds or close. So filters working on each individual note every single time. That way you don't have, as the filter opens up, it's not opening up for every note. So I could keep, for instance, one note held the whole time. It does a lot of the rhythm, and then I could play a different melody. It's not going to activate the filter soon enough to really open up. So you get two different full sounds as you're playing it. Cool. That's just one thing we're going to control with this. We're going to load up some more things here. We can load up multiple of these same ones. This one, let's do it with the LFO instead. And there's a reason why I would use the LFO or the envelope here with the modulator instead of the envelope here. This one inside the modulator has a lot more control over things. So you can do a little bit more with the output level and the offset, which you can't do as much in here. But say we wanted to, for instance, adjust the vibrato. So I'm going to click on that after I say learn, and when I push a key, you'll see the vibrato going back and forth. So that's just an example of what we could do with that. Let's actually change, instead of doing that, let's change the cutoff frequency right here. So it's going to change. Let's up the output and let's change the bass offset. I'm going to adjust that takt time coming a little slower. Okay, so let's pull this down, out, really slow that down all the way through. We're going to add a little bit of a delay in there. Well, I don't think we need a delay. You can see the trigger right here. This is the multi thing I was just talking about a minute ago. So this one works differently than the filter does on the actual instrument itself. It's a little bit more simple in that aspect. It's not going to re-trigger for every single note. Cool. So I also want, let's have the flanger do something here, the built-in flanger. Same sample and hold. This time let's do eighth notes. Learn plugin. I don't know if we want to do a rate or if we want to do the mix. I think we want to do the mix rather than the rate. And instead of doing the full-on amount, so this is where some of these offsets and things come in handy, we're going to lower so that it just stays down in the lower part of the mix, or just does a little bit. So we could pull this down, and now it's just going to be a little bit that gets added in. I want to actually change so this sustains out a little bit. We're going to have it build in a little bit, but as I release, so my hands are off the keyboard now. Let's have it build in and fade out just a little bit. So I like how that releases out a little bit. Pretty standard amplitude envelope type thing right there. Cool. So I think I'm going to explore a few of the other waveforms here. Nothing else should be changing. Let me know if that's too loud. So you can create full soundscapes with this thing. I mean, you're getting really interesting motion through it. And let's try something a little bit out there with another modulator here. This one we're going to be also doing kind of a random. We're going to have it control shape number 2. Let's have it do So what you're hearing, I don't know if you can hear it too well, but this one is doing a triplet feel and the other one is doing a non-triplet feel. And so we're kind of getting a little bit of play off of those. I'm not sure. So oscillator 1, if we mix it straight to that. Not oscillator, but wave table 1. And this is wave table 2. So it really creates kind of a distinct sound that we mix them 50-50. Cool. And we can continue to combine these. One other really cool thing we can do, let's add another modulator at the top. Sweet. This is begins to be one of my favorite ways to modulate things. Not as much this one. I just looked at that one. Let's see. So this is for the flanger. I actually want to do a nice slow 1 bar modulation. Let's do another learn plugin parameter. And this one's going to be of the output of this one. Let's slow that down even more. So you can actually modulate between the two of these and have this modulator setting the level of the other modulator. So you can come up with some really crazy sounds with this. And this is without doing any other audio effects at all. So everything we've done right now are just modulators either controlling each other or this instrument. If we wanted to start incorporating some other audio things in here, I'll answer that question in a second. If we want to do some other things, for instance, one of the things I love doing with this would be going through, let's see, using, for instance, the Vocoder plugin, which I really hope Logic or Apple is going to be updating at some point. So that's not the actual one. There we go. So this will be a vocoder we could add in a few minutes. Yes, you can definitely use the modulator to make more rhythmic patterns. Not exactly set rhythmic patterns. So for instance, right now I'm using, for the most of the rhythm, I'm doing the randomization, or the essentially sample and hold. So it's doing a random pattern throughout. You can come up with rhythms doing that. Or you could do just square wave or triangle wave to do that. For instance, if I wanted to do another modulator here, and let's do this for, well, let's see, I don't know. Oh, we'll do it for the overall volume. So now it's controlling the overall volume. You do get a rhythm, but it's not like a set rhythm so much in this case with the modulator. Cool. Other questions about modulators and things like that. It's a really flexible tool. I'll show you a little bit with the vocoder here in a second if you're interested in that. I think we could add perhaps some more rhythm stuff this way. So I'm going to add a drummer track. And the drummer track, we'll mute for a moment. Inside our vocoder here, let's see, we're going to sidechain this off of the drums. So that sets the rhythm to come in from the drummer. We can tell what we're listening to by choosing which signal to be here. So I'm going to listen to the synth. Let's do. Let's set a little loop pattern here. Okay, so we have that. I'm going to send, just for a second, I'm going to send out, let's do the drums just on a random bus. And I'll do pre-fader, so I can just mute that for now. On my Evoc 20, I'm going to do bus 7 drums. Let's double check I'm not getting them someplace else as well. There they are. Cool. So we should, okay, here we go. Analysis in, synthesis in. Let's do that with the sidechain. Should be, there's the analysis in, coming from the drum. So I'm hearing that through the vocoder. Synthesis in is the track that this is on, so the synth track. Should hear that here. And let's actually turn off that last volume modulator I added a minute ago. Okay, now we switch this into vocoder, push play. And we now have the drums and the original retro synth being combined together. We can change exactly how much that's going to be combined by adjusting some of our settings here. So I'm going to push play. Let me, let's just record a little MIDI chord. And again, because of the way modulators work, I'm going to do my formant shift right here. We'll slow it way down. Changing the mode can give you better results sometimes. I just added some fills into this as well. That way we get some interesting variations as it hits the end of each of those sections. Almost sounds like a stutter effect in some ways. And then we really want to combine that sound with, for instance, like a drum, like a kick or a bass sound. So we would do some part of this with, well, let's add one thing at a time. Let's add some sort of low frequency instrument. We can do this with the default of retro. Or we could change that, but I think that'll work for now. I'm going to, from where I'm sitting, I think it's easier just to transpose there. Okay, so okay, so we have that part. I'm going to add a compressor onto the bass. And we're going to sidechain this one as well from instrument 1. This way the bass will get a little softer in time with the rhythm of the first thing. We missed the first note there, so let's go edit that real quick. Okay, also, it doesn't really blend very well like that, so we're going to for the side chain, I want to actually just pull it down so it's listening to low frequencies. Adjust the release time now so that it's staying in there just a little longer. So what that's doing is it's making sure that the bass, every time this is having its peaks, that the bass gets pulled down just a little bit. That way the two aren't as competing as much in the lower frequencies, and that gets out of the way. Typically I do this with a kick drum and a bass, but I'm trying to build up this particular sound just a little bit all by itself, showing how some of these things work together a little bit. Cool. I think I want to also just add another instrument now. We'll do studio strings. Let's just do it from over here. We'll do a let's see, the small section. See how long it takes to load up. I need to get a faster hard drive for my external files on this computer, but it seems like it's doing okay. Okay, so I want to put on an equalizer here because I want these things to build in, but not volume wise. I want to build in with a filter. So we're going to do the same thing with the modulator. We're focused on modulators a lot, it seems like today. And let's do learn plugin parameter. Turn on a low pass. Oh, that's not what I wanted to have on. Learn plugin parameter 20, high pass, low pass. Okay, let's kill that for a second. There we go. So we're going to start it. No, we're definitely going to do this side here. So we're going to learn plugin parameter 20 hertz right there. So if I push a note, so we want to do more of an output level. Let's go all the way up. Drop my mouse. There we go. Let's slow it down. Too slow. Let's see if we can do a single trigger now. Get the sustain out. Okay. Let's add this part to this. Man, that really jumped in fast. Let's see what was happening with that. So we need it to go a little bit slower. A little bit faster. Let's have it go down. And then increase the decay out a little bit. It's getting too bright, so let's reduce the maximum output. Okay, we're going to change the offset so it starts a little bit into it. Just lengthening those notes out at the end. And let's get that thing to stop a little bit longer. So I'm timing it so it kind of arcs over the full 8 bars. I still think Perhaps it's getting a little too bright, so let's lower that. Okay, I think that's really close. Okay, cool. Well, it looks like we've got just a couple of you watching right now. Anything that I show that you want to learn more about, just ask right now. We're probably going to pull the plug on this here in a few minutes. I think I'm going to start regular live stream. Try to do it a few times a week, maybe more. I think there's something I like about doing the live streams more than just the videos, but we'll see if there's actually any interest for it. Because right now it looks like it says like actually about 3 of you watching. And I'm not counting Blade Runner's questions about switching to Ableton. Ableton's cool. Anything at all from the crowd? I don't know why it's not showing up on my phone as being a live stream. Maybe it's not working. Well, we're going to pull the plug on this. We're going to stop streaming. I hope you're all having a great day. Hope you found a little bit of this useful. Oh, there's something else. Oh. I saw that question earlier. And there's really no way to do specific rhythmic things. Probably the closest that we can come to doing other rhythmic patterns, which is kind of cool, would be using the Arpeggiator. So for instance, say I've got so you're saying that right now with the Arpeggiator and a 16th note value. There is a way to possibly do something similar. Let me show you real quickly what this looks like. Using a retro synth again, this time with the Arpeggiator in place. So the Arpeggiator, of course, looks like that. Let's just do a grid on here. So you could theoretically take this, using the ARP, we could do a modifier, I'm pretty sure. So we're changing this, the note number. Well, we could leave it even through. So the note number then, let's add EQ. So the note number is being reassigned in this case to I guess, hold on, let's stop that for 1 second. Turn on the low pass. Learn plugin parameter, frequency. So we're going to subtract some from this. So you could use the Arpeggiator. It's already scaled up. I wonder if it's... Yeah, so it's not doing as much as I'm hoping. So we could actually turn off the through port here. And it's possible still, let's just copy and paste this one down. Solo this out. Yeah, we're going to have to turn the through on, I think. There's a way to also do this where the arpeggiator is just controlling this and not controlling the notes. But so you can create a lot of different patterns and things using the actual arpeggiator to do other things with it. So I wouldn't use the modulator as much to do other kinds of patterns as much. It's kind of nice for the randomization and the square and to do kind of long movements. But in terms of creative patterns and stuff, that's where you do the arpeggiator and you start changing what that data is doing using other things. And I think there's actually, the modifier is cool, but there's actually inside the scripter a more powerful version of that. So I think if we do MIDI to plugin parameters inside the scripter, what's nice about this is that you can set one type of input, so note values, and you can set target 1. I don't know if we can actually set it to note values as well, but we can set it to any of these things or learn a plugin parameter like we did. And you can set minimum to be 100 and max to be 0. And so you're actually inverting all the data. It's pretty cool. Yes, in terms of your question about the using the modifier to link parameters to any other kind, that's exactly what you can do. I do that all the time. There's actually one way, there's really only a couple ways to do this where, for instance, on this thing here, let's go back to the modifier for a second. And pitch bend data is tricky. So it's not normal MIDI control data, but I can use pitch bend data now. So I can use my pitch bend wheel to control almost anything. So I can essentially really easily have 2 mod wheels on my keyboard. So it's really useful for that type of stuff. You can change all of it. You can change velocity data to control plugins. So if you're doing something really soft on a keyboard with low velocity, and as you increase that, you could have all kinds of crazy things happen with it. So this is really powerful. We used to do this inside the environment. So we would be in the environment in here and use, which one would use? The transformer. I don't need that icon. Where did the transformer go? Here it is. So we would use the transformer to do most of this work in the old days. So I could set whatever status I wanted to, the channel that it was going to be, what the data was going to be. I could say I want to fix it or map it. All of this you can do with this, but the new MIDI effects are so much easier. The old way was a pain in the butt, and you actually had to know quite a bit about what MIDI was and what all the status data was. All of that stuff I still know, but it's rusty because we're lazy, because we have cool plugins like this, which just make it so easy. I can say, I want to learn and all that stuff. And in fact, if you're really looking at doing something pretty amazing with this, you could do a super nifty trick where trying to think of this. We do a new external MIDI track, and we send out the MIDI using the IAC driver. This is in our audio MIDI setup. So we have to turn that on. And then we can route the IAC driver into other channels. So we can use the MIDI effects on one channel, send out the data. Actually, we don't do it through the IAC driver on an external MIDI track. That's wrong, I think. Well, no, it could be right. If we're using data from like an instrument or an external controller, then we can bring it through the IAC onto any other track. The other way we would do that is a software instrument track, where I think we do that with the external instrument. So the MIDI destination would be the IAC driver, and then the input on another track we would use and be able to control MIDI from that one. So we can actually route MIDI around inside Logic using the IAC driver. Yeah, I totally agree about how you can experiment with it. It's a little mind-boggling because I think some of these things would be easier if they would just open up some of the pathways inside Logic. Because right now to have to use an IAC driver to route MIDI outside of Logic and back in is kind of a pain. But I think it feels like audio tracks really should have MIDI effects on them. And maybe you should be able to route between different tracks pretty easy. Or for instance, I wish a plugin on one track could be routed to a plugin on another track, like sidechaining. So we'd have a MIDI sidechain instead of just an audio sidechain. That would be pretty cool too. Well, good. I mean, I'm glad we had some good questions there. I mean, this is a lot you can do with this. It's pretty cool. Hopefully answer your questions in a way that I understood. I did, some of that stuff is not exactly advanced, but it's pretty advanced. So if you don't know, for instance, what the IAC driver is or something like that, I can see how I went super fast at explaining it instead of going through every step. But I'll be posting this video up as well. So if you want to check it out later, you can recap what I did and actually look at it. Yes, Harold. Ableton is the king of this type of stuff. I say it's better than probably anything, but there are some things in Logic that Ableton can't even like come close to. I think if you're using live performance a lot and want to really mangle things up and think about it non-linearly, because Ableton is so good with putting all of your little clips everywhere and being able to access them in a non front to back kind of way, then use Ableton. But if you really want the more linear way of looking at things but still have a lot of the power, then I think something like Logic is way better. For instance, Pro Tools sucks at both of them. So I'd say if you're using Ableton or Logic, you're in a lot better place overall. Yeah, that's true about not being able to send it directly to Logic, which is a bummer. There are some things that are kind of a bummer about it. The biggest bummer in Logic has nothing to do, has to do with MIDI, but it's over here. Say I have an instrument channel, and let's see, I want to set, for instance, what input it is. All I have is a universal MIDI channel. I've got a keyboard here and a keyboard right behind me, and I've got my breath controller here, and I've got my other controller here, and I've got a Akai that I hook up sometimes. All of this stuff I can't set specific ports on. You can do that in Ableton, Pro Tools, everything else. Just Logic is one of the few that you don't. And inside Logic, what you're stuck with is this right here, the sum of all of these things. Now you can kind of work around it using this, but not so much. So I don't even see all of my inputs on there because I'm playing one of my keyboards that I don't see on that list right there. So I don't know. Oh, there's it hidden. So the SL Studio, my Steinberg interface, my MIO interface has a ton of them on there, Ethernet, 5-pin, and everything. All of that gets summed together to go inside the sequencer. So it's really limiting in many ways. Yeah, I'll do more. I'll post it up online so that, and that's a good idea. Maybe we should just do a whole thing on basic MIDI routing inside Logic and talk about where all it can go and how it works. So anyway, let's wrap this one up. It's been about 55 minutes since I first started. I'll look and see how the quality was and how it worked, and fine tune this machine for the next time we do this. It sucks being locked out of my office at the university because of this whole thing going on, because I usually prefer to do this with my 2 or 3 monitors hooked up, and right now I've just got one monitor, so it makes it a little bit tricky to see what's going on. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'm going to shoot to do one. Today is Wednesday. I'm going to shoot to do another one on Friday, so look for something on my channel, or there will be an announcement that goes out about when the next one will be. Cool. See ya.